After we have looked at a spread operator, let's look at a rest operator. And it is easy to get confused because both of them have the same syntax. However, one thing that we need to remember is that whenever we're using a rest operator, we're using as we're declaring the function. However, the spread operator we're using whenever we are invoking the function. So if you remember in the previous video, when we had an array and we wanted to access the items from the array and place them as a parameters, we used it when we were invoking the function. However, with a rest operator, we're going to be using it whenever we're going to be declaring the function. And the rest operator is going to help us to work with a arguments variable, which is going to hold all the parameters that we're passing through. And as always, it's going to be easier if we're going to go through with an example. So let's say we have a function that's going to be having a name of sum, and we're going to be passing a variables over here. So let's say we're going to be passing some parameters of num1, num2, and let's say over here num3. And once within the function body, we're going to have a let result. This is going to be equal to num1 plus num2, and over here also num3. So we're just adding all the numbers, and we're going to console log the result, so wherever the result is. But also we would want to console log the arguments. And again, the arguments is going to be the variable that holds all the parameters or all the arguments that we're passing through within the function. So let's go ahead and let's call this function sum, and let's start by placing 3 arguments. So let's say 1, 2, and 3 over here. Now once I run the function, I'm going to have 6, so this would be the result. And as you notice, I have the arguments that has 1, 2, 3. Now again, the problem is that this is not an array. This is array-like object, but this is not an array. So again, if we would want to use something like filter or reduce on it, the methods that we know from the array methods, we wouldn't be able to do it. Because again, this would return that there is a mistake, because there is no way we can use the array methods on the array-like object. So rest operator helps us to fix that. So let's just comment that out, and let's rewrite it with a rest operator. So first again, let's write a function. This is going to be sum. Now in our case, we're going to pass the args. So we're going to have 3 dots. So this would be our rest operator, and then whatever name we're passing. Now I'm passing args, but you can pass an onion or orange, doesn't matter. What you're saying is now I would want to work with a rest operator, and I would want to access the args variable. Now again, within a function body, first let's console log the args, so whatever parameters we're passing in, and next let's start working with these arguments. So first let's do let result, so this is going to be my result, and let's filter and use the reduce this time. So since the name of my rest operator I have is args, so I'm going to write args. Then I would use the array method of filter, and in the callback function I'm going to write that item should be, let's say, bigger than 3. So item bigger than 3. So first I'm returning all the items that are bigger than 3. Now next I would want to chain the method of reduce, and I would want to add all those values together. Now for the reduce, we have 2 parameters in the callback function. One is going to be accumulator, other one is going to be current. Now obviously again, those are names for parameters, so we can use whatever we would want, but I'm just going to stick with these 2 because you can mostly find them in the examples. So here within the function body, we're going to be returning the accumulator. So return accumulator, and also we would need the initial value for the reduce. So in our case, we're going to say that initial value is going to be 0. So once we have set up the reduce function, now we would need to decide what we would want to do. So in our case, we would just want to sum all the values together. So I'm just going to say with each iteration, we would want to add to the current accumulator the current item. So once we save it, and once we're going to do a console log the result, then we're going to see the actual result, what we have as a sum. So once I save this, now I would need to invoke the function. So let's start very simply with sum. However, in this case, you notice that I have args. So I can start by just passing one value and see what happens. Well, first of all, it shows that in my args, I have 1, However, in this case, this is an array. So we're able to do all the operations that we already wrote over here with a filter and reduce. So obviously nothing is happening because we're filtering only if the value is above 3. So now let's just add values above 3. So let's do another 2, just so we can see that this is not going to be added. And then we're going to have 3. And now we're going to be starting adding values. So let's say in our case, let's just pass 4 and 5. And if everything works correctly, our sum should be 9. So once we save it, and sure enough, first of all, it shows that we have the args. So the args, our variable, is going to hold all our 5 parameters or arguments that we're passing in. And the sum is going to be 9 because we're going to filter through an array. And then we're going to add only the values that are bigger than 3. Now, wherever we're working with a rest operator, we also have an option of adding more parameters. However, when I say more parameters, I don't mean whatever we're passing in as an argument, but let's say that instead of filtering whether it's bigger than 3, we would want to pass the parameter, which each time could change, and then use that parameter in our filter method. So let me show you what I'm talking about. So first, let's say that we would pass it as a value. Now the key over here is if we're passing other parameters, we would need to separate it with the dot. So now in this case, the JavaScript knows that whatever we're storing with a REST operator in arguments is going to be separate from the value that we're passing in. Now, obviously, we can add whatever more parameters we would want. But we're just going to start with a simple one where we're passing one parameter. In our case, then, as an argument, I'm going to pass this parameter first. And I'm going to say that I'm going to be looking for, let's say, instead of 3, we're going to be looking for a 2. Now, also, we would need to change in our filter method where we're not looking for a item is bigger than 3, but we're looking for a item is bigger than a parameter value that we're passing in. So once I save it, now you notice the value is going to be 12 because now as my parameter is going to be 2, we're going to be looking for a numbers that are bigger than 2. So it's going to be 3, 4, 5. Now, obviously, if I'm going to change this, that it has to be bigger than 4, now my value is going to be 5. Now, as you can see, however I change this parameter, so does my filter and reduce changes. Because even though the arguments stay the same, now I'm passing a different value. However, we need to be careful where we have the parameters and we're placing them behind the REST operator. The REST operator always needs to be last in whenever we are declaring the function. So let's say I'm going to say another value, and this is going to be something like number. And once we save it, you notice we have REST parameter must be the last in the formal parameter. So this is not going to work, and this is going to be the mistake. So we can add as many other parameters as we would like and just use the REST operator to get all the arguments that we're looking for. However, we need to make sure that the REST operator is going to be last in a function declaration.